I don't know. There seems to be, at least in terms of like politics on the left, as it were. There's obviously two different stories. One is everything that's going on with Biden. As far as I can tell, I don't want to get too deep into it right now. I mean, obviously, people have different perspectives on what they feel about Tara Reade's allegation, the veracity of it. I don't know that anybody can ever resolve it. I think it's, in some respects, a Rorschach test for people.
Very much so.
And then there's a subsidiary question as to what do you do about it if you do believe that it's true. And I think some people have better arguments than others in terms of how they're going to react to it. Some I think are more sincere than others. But I was struck by, there was a poll that was done. It was it's sort of like almost like a focus group. And I'm trying to think where I have the actual results. And in many respects, I mean, here it is. So this is from Morning Cult. So we showed voters a clip of Joe Biden's denial of Tara Reade's allegations of sexual assault. After watching, this is what came up. And I don't know if we have actually a clip of this. It's from Morning Consult. The poll was conducted May 2nd to 3rd. They hype it as 1 in 4 Democrats say parties should replace Biden, but I don't know if that's really quite accurate in terms of the way that people would read it. Here is 1 in 4 Democrats want a different nominee. That is true, but not, I don't know. It's a little bit overstated, it seems to me. Here are the real numbers. Go down to the graph if you can. So basically what you get is 14% say yes, definitely. They should select a different nominee, Democrats. 12% say yes, probably. 13% don't. No opinion. 20% say no, probably not. And then 41% say no, definitely not. So this, to me, looks like if I'm looking at this calculation and I'm Joe Biden, if it was switched, I'd be like, I need to get out of this race. Or, maybe my donors would say, you need to get out of this race. But if I look at this and I'm Joe Biden, I go, we're in April, we're in May, when I know that we're going to have a depression coming and only 14% of Democrats say that I should definitely not be the nominee. All right, I'm in it. I can win back, 4 or 5% of those. And then I'm doing historically better than most Democrats.
If the story dies down, which is what they're trying to do, I don't think they're doing it effectively, but
I don't know.
I mean, there's something that's this.
If there's no more to the story, is really what it seems to me.
How do you? I mean, that's the real bet there. It's like this brand of Democrat, of establishment, institutional Democratic leader from that generation, but I wouldn't even say just that generation. There were plenty of sophisticated political figures who would lean into a crisis. But this is very like 1980s, very Clintonian. The way that Biden is handling this is, I don't think it's how Obama would handle it. Like, I think there's actually a generational divide in terms of like how they deal with crises, and it just grows. And I don't understand. Maybe it's just because they're using like the same advisors. Maybe it's because they all came up together, did the same comms trainings. I don't know. But
Clinton leaned right into his. I mean, he went on and he did these big interviews on with Hillary. I mean, he went head in.
But later on, it became the Hillary Clinton, avoiding it, denying it, wiping the server clean, whatever it is. I mean, he just, especially with something that is as sensitive as this, where there's so much visible, like branding around that reputation, it just seems a very weird way for him to handle this crisis. And then to have women go out there and sacrifice. I mean, this is my frustration. And I know there's a bigger conversation here, but I do think that this is a story will grow. and that they're going to try to, and they already have tried to say, okay, she's not a credible witness. A very notable feminist writer who does not like Biden actually said something privately to me saying, well, you know, there might be some hints of like mental illness. And I was like, so? And then she was like, well, you know, and I said, hang on a second. You know, she mentioned Rose McGowan. She goes, well, clearly Rose McGowan. And I said, well, even if that's the case, that's the point. These sorts of situations, if this woman, as she said, Tara Reid, was driven out of her field for how many years? She wasn't listened to. She couldn't speak. I mean, it was very clear that like she couldn't, even if she were to file a complaint, it wasn't going to go anywhere. This isn't like a 1980s, 1990s thing. This is like, you know, you still have this issue in a lot of places. And her career has basically been shifted. Like so many women, Rose McGowan, who had a beautiful career, you know, whatever you want to say about her mental health, that's irrelevant because these are the kinds of situations that might set people off even more so, especially if it's pre-existing. Now, match that with someone like a Harvey Weinstein, who is a clear sociopath.
Right.
It took enormous like institutional breakdowns, you know, for his entire like personality, which everyone knew was insane, to be exposed. And yet our natural starting point for women who are coming forward with a story is that, oh, well, they're crazy, they might be lying. Okay, even if they're, quote, crazy, that doesn't necessarily mean they're lying. It might actually be a symptom of the problem, which was, you know, something in their life traumatic happened and they haven't been able to, you know, pursue their dreams like a lot of women have. And then you call them hysterical. I was really bothered by this because this is a feminist writer who was more interested at the end of the day, you know, maybe it's just like a little bit above, like she believes in all the feminist theories and she writes about this is her brand. And then like a little bit above, she just gives the establishment the benefit of the doubt. And time again, the establishment has proven us that they're not to be trusted on these issues and they will cover up for their power.
I mean, look, I'm trying to just sort of separate my assessment of her charge from this. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it sounds like I say, I don't think we'll ever know, but to me, it sounds very plausible. I mean, I think I would imagine if Joe Biden went through that situation, walked away from it, probably thought I took no means no. And so I took no for an answer and I walked away from it. Like, I think, I mean, you know, 1993, senator, 50-year-old man, you know.
3 martini lunches, hanging out with Chris Dodd all day.
I just think that like the idea that he walked away from that situation going like, you know, when he said, you're all right, according to her, that to me just sounds like somebody who said like, I'm doing the right thing. Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you. Walk away. Maybe he was a little bit too forward in his mind. So that seems completely plausible to me. Then the question is, from a political analysis, there's a couple of questions that people are answering. One, I don't believe her. I'm voting for Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. 2 is, I can't tell. There's no way to resolve this. I'm voting for Joe Biden. 3 is, I believe her. I'm voting for Joe Biden.
Yep.
4 is, I believe her. I'm not voting for Joe Biden.
Right.
And then maybe there's a 5th, which is, I was never going to vote for Joe Biden anyways.
Or what if now I'm not voting?
I'm like Biden. When I say not voting for Joe Biden, like I'm not going to vote.
No.
And because I don't think anybody's going to go like, I know how to, you know, like I'm going to go to the guy who has 20 allegations of sexual assault as opposed to the guy with 1. I mean, look, you know, so strictly from a political analysis, all I'm saying is that I look at this morning consult thing, and I imagine somebody else may want to put out a different poll. But when they sit down and they look at his explanation, they take it. We don't know. People may believe they'll fall into one of those 4 categories or 5 categories. And after all those 5 categories weigh in, if only 14% are saying right now, I'm not going to, we should definitely get a different nominee. And a portion of those are probably saying it for the reason that I would say it, which is this is a liability. Right. Like he's a liability. Now, it's hard for me to separate the fact that like, I don't want him to be the nominee anyways. I think he's got a lot of other liabilities, but I just don't think that this is going to move the needle at this point. And it's possible there may be other women who come out and say, I went through this, and that changes the calculation completely. But I just don't know where else the story goes in terms of like, that would convince anybody who is relevant in the decision-making process of him not being in there, that look at these numbers and say, we got to get somebody new. Like I like that, that's just the cold, hard reality about it. And from a moral stance, I don't know. I don't know what the moral stance is here. I guess because I'm like Thanos, I would say, what's going to decrease the suffering for as many people as possible? Not voting for Joe Biden, sitting this one out, or voting for him against Donald Trump.
Right.
And I certainly would love someone else to be the nominee, but it's also like at one point when you realize that someone is not going to be the nominee based upon anything that I say or you say, or frankly, any activist says at this point, like, this is what happens when people are faced with the reality of this. And maybe she could go on national television and be more convincing than Joe Biden.
She has been, but she's also getting threats, and we have to, keep that in mind. That
exactly.
This
I'm
story
just talking about the political realities of it, right? Like it's
and I'm saying that in sense of the story growing, so that maybe if the polls were to shift at all, and again, I want to come back to, I don't actually think that when it comes to the micro targeting of this race, like that's probably what Anita Dunn is sitting there thinking, like, okay, we have to make sure that as long as unemployment reaches this level, Donald Trump's going to be extremely unpopular. And as long as we keep these people locked in at this percent and these people locked in at this percent, I don't know what their actual strategy is there. I have a sense of it, but I don't want to who knows? It's so early. With that being said, big stories like this can impact it's the enthusiasm and the narrative, and then he can't break through. It's not like Joe Biden's out there campaigning. So this is the only story about Joe Biden right now. So that actually impacts a voter, psychologically, and it could be the voter that they need to turn out in, say they have some theory that
very possible. But my feeling is like, if you can't tell me that in an elevator ride, nobody's pressuring him to get out. Nobody who's relevant to that calculation is going to pressure him to get out.
Well, and that's Tom Perez saying he's going to move on with the DNC in August in person.
Has he said that?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yesterday's
news.
I
got a bridge for you in Brooklyn if you want to believe that. All right, so let's move on. And then the other